Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of having on today Mo Rock. Mo Rock is the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune. As CEO, he has an opportunity of creating a news organization that's different than the ones that are already out there. He specifically targets individuals that are trying to have the most impact. He's not like other news organizations, which is just trying to get the most views. He uses a quote, "If it bleeds, it leads," is something that he does not do with his company. Instead, he tries to help inspire the people that are going to have the greatest impact to everyone around them. And he tries to focus in on those individuals. And through his intelligence, through his experience, and through his knowledge, he's really been able to help grow the Los Angeles Tribune since the time of the pandemic. He's very inspiring. His energy is very high, and he's somebody that will infect you. And as we discussed throughout the podcast, if we can inspire one person with what we've talked about today, then we've done a great job. So please tune in, and I hope that it inspires you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast. Today, we have the esteemed, the famous, the amazing, and wonderful CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune, Mo Rock, with us here today. Mo, I just want to say thank you so much for coming down here and being a part of this podcast. I look forward to diving deep, learning a lot about what's going on with you, and I really appreciate you being here.
Well, Joe, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. I think the work you do is amazing, and I'm excited to have a very powerful conversation.
Yep, 100%. And so to tell you a little bit about Mo, Mo is the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune. He's also an author of a new book that's been coming out called The Moral Compass, 28 Principles of Integrity. He was featured on the front page of entrepreneur.com, and he's been previously featured on LA Weekly and Forbes. And so today we're going to be diving into what it is like to be the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune. And I also just want to hear a lot of the nuances in regards to like how much do you have freedom to choose the topics that are discussed, and how much do you have freedom to express yourself? Because I mean, in like recent history, I've seen things like on the internet where they show 20 news stations all saying the same exact words, the same exact stuff across all platforms, and it's so curated. And so I wonder if that's what you're dealing with on your end, or do you guys have the freedom to talk about the topics that you wish to discuss?
What a fantastic opening question, and I'm so glad you brought that up. So the Los Angeles Tribune is one of the few, well, let's start here.
Yeah.
In the United States of America, there are 20 metropolitan cities that are the top 20.
Okay.
Each one of these cities, whether it's Detroit, New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Minneapolis, each one of the top 20 cities has on average 3 legacy newspaper brands, right? And we define that by a name that has existed in the ethos, in the culture, for at least about 100 years or so.
Okay.
So that's about 60 names. If you really think about it, it's not too many.
Okay.
Out of those 60, only a handful are still independently owned.
Okay.
So what you're describing is, and I know exactly what videos you're referring to. A lot of them have gone viral. It looks like a bunch of zombies saying the same exact thing. It's actually kind of spooky and dystopian. Those are because those are not different news stations. It's one media company that just has subsets and subdivisions.
Okay.
Los Angeles Tribune is completely independently owned. Myself, my partners, one of whom which is here with us behind the scenes, we are the individuals that call the shots. And what that's afforded us to do is it's afforded us the opportunity to do things with a newspaper brand that people are not used to.
Yeah.
As an example, we're the only national brand that cares about personal development. We have an entire division devoted to personal development, self-help, leadership principles. And we have, newspapers, as a matter of fact, that are exclusively devoted to leadership and personal development. Because here's the thing, Joe. When somebody reads a copy of the Los Angeles Tribune, they oftentimes tell me, Mo, after reading your newspaper, I feel empowered.
Yeah.
But when I read another newspaper, I feel disempowered.
Yeah.
So we don't focus on the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
We don't have a philosophy of if it bleeds, it leads, which is the philosophy of a lot of producers, unfortunately, in the news world. So we're totally doing something unconventional, something different, and quite frankly, something that the world needs right now.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of things come to mind when you talk about this. One is when you said that it bleeds, it leads, right? You can give news that literally gives you fear, it gives you anxiety, but this is the stuff that gets a lot of the clicks, right? It gets a lot of the views. And then I had a question too. When you say independently owned, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean you're owned by like shareholders, or does it mean one family owns you or one company owns you? What exactly does that mean?
Independently owned means we are a private company.
Okay.
And so we are not a public company, and nor do we have a lot of corporate bureaucracy. We keep our ship tight, so we don't have to deal with corporate bureaucracy. I think bureaucracy is in the public sector and in the private sector. And so a lot of times to go to the people, there are hoops that private companies and public companies need to jump through. And we try to avoid that. It's part of our philosophy. We really see ourselves as the newspaper of the people, for the people, and by the people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we go about it.
Got it. Okay. And so you're CEO. How did you get to being CEO? Obviously, it was a long journey to get there. And how many people work in the company?
Yeah, great question. So right now, because of the world order that we're in, we have so many employees from around the world.
Yeah.
And because of globalism moving at a Mach 10 speed, we have, graphic designers that might be in the Philippines. We have editors that might be in India. And so internationally, we have so many different people that help support our needs. Here domestically, going back to keeping a tight ship, we try to keep it as tight as possible. And so I was watching an interview, I think it was on Rogan the other day, where someone was having a conversation about how we are close to having the world's first 3-person billion-dollar company. And I think because of AI, because of the technology, because of all of the automation, it's become easier to do things that traditionally may have needed 500 people.
Yeah.
Today you could do it with 50 people or less.
Yeah.
And so I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a situation where just from the number of people in this room, which is a handful, you can have a billion-dollar company, right? Because first of all, it's easy to have partnerships. Once upon a time, you needed to have a marketing division. You can have a marketing agency.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, you needed to have an HR department. You can have an HR company, pay them monthly. I know you have done a fantastic job, Joe, of figuring out a way to run a law firm with a tight ship.
Yeah.
And so I know I'm resonating with you.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I think we're in the age of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We're in the days of having to have 5 floors of people in one confined area are dead.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad that they're dead because the cream will always rise to the top.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. And even when you're saying this, I'm realizing a lot of the stuff that I do within my own company, right? Like if I want to talk about the actual size of my company, am I including the 2 marketing agencies, the one I use for social media, the one that does my normal marketing? Am I including my 2 CPA firms?
Right.
Am I including all these other, independent contractors that are doing full-time jobs for my company, but they're not all in one location? And even more so, like I run a fully remote law firm, right? We don't even go to an office. We all work from home. And so it's like we still have this company, but it's not all in one location. So I guess let's talk about just like the core of your business, like the core people, about how many people does it take to run the Tribune?
Yeah, well, to your point, I mean, there are probably hundreds of people involved if you break it down through that capacity.
Yeah.
Just to put one special thought leader edition out, there are hundreds of individuals that are involved.
Yeah.
We have just 50 writers on average per issue.
Okay.
Just the writers.
Okay.
Not the editors, nothing like that. But we're also proud that we have the first Filipino-American woman as a senior editor, Alva Manuel. She's done an incredible job for our organization as a leader, and she's really, broken some glass ceilings with us, which is something we're proud of. And she does a remarkable job of managing all of that.
Yeah.
And she's hopefully you'll interview her at some point soon, and she can give you more detailed answers because she's really the one in the trenches.
Yeah.
And I think every business needs to have individuals that can help supplement the qualities, characteristics, and attributes that may not be your strength.
Yeah.
A professor at Harvard named Howard Gardner did exhaustive research, and what he found was every single person, Joe, has at least one area of their life that they're technically a genius in.
Yeah.
Right? And so there are individuals that are living their lives, living their businesses, not exercising their zone of genius.
Yeah.
And so if your zone of genius is being a creative innovator where you have the ideas, you need to double down on that strength and have individuals on your team, in my case, people like Alva Manuel, that are good at the things I'm not good at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And hire the companies or the agencies that can do the things that you're not good at. I'm not good at accounting, right? I think it's important for everyone to have a basic level of accounting.
Yeah.
If you're in business, even if it's just watching a few, YouTube tutorials on the basics of accounting. I think it's necessary, but I'm not going to be an accountant.
Yeah.
And so I have to outsource that to a qualified organization. So I know that they do everything the right way, stamp everything the right way, do everything by the book.
Yeah.
And so we have to double down on what we're good at, and we have to supplement the things that we're not as good at. And we have to, first of all, know what we're good at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I remember listening to a coach online recently where he coaches billionaires. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he said that the one thing that he teaches all these billionaires is he teaches them to only do one thing. He says if he can get them down to doing the one thing that they do the best, and that's all they do, then they can become extremely successful. So it's stop doing all the things that you're not the best at. And like you said, if you're the best at something, it means you can get paid the most for doing that one thing. So all of those other things that you're trying to do in your life, you should be giving to somebody who is a specialist, somebody who is better than you at that thing, so that they can go ahead and handle it. So I agree with you on all accounts here.
I think that if you are in an industry, regardless of what the industry is, if you have a specific job title, ask yourself this question. Is there a possibility, a realistic possibility, that I could be the best in this position? If the answer is no, you're not doing the right thing with your life and with your purpose. I love basketball. I love watching basketball. I love fantasy basketball. I'm never going to be Michael Jordan. I know that for a fact. No matter how much I love basketball, I can never be the greatest of all time. But I know in the field of media, in the field of personal development media specifically, I could be the best, right? At least I believe that in my heart. And so if you don't have that conviction that you could be the best in your industry, you're actually being disrespectful to God.
Yeah.
Because you're not living your purpose. You're not doing what you're put here to do.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of folks that, because of a low self-esteem, because of a lack of drive or ambition, or because they got kicked in the head a couple times, metaphorically speaking, they've given up on that purpose. They've given up on that dream.
Yeah.
They've given up on doing what they're put here to do.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say you're being disrespectful to the Creator, to the universe, to God, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah. Whatever your beliefs are.
So you have to know what you're here to do.
Yeah. And I mean,
And you got to get fired up and pumped up about it.
yeah. I mean, I feel that in my soul when you say that, right? Being disrespectful to God. And I don't feel it in a bad way. It is a disrespect. I mean, and I also believe that God is one with us. We're one with God. So it's like you're disrespecting yourself at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And like, why wouldn't you want to go out there and do the thing which is going to get you fired up? Don't we all want to feel inspired? Don't we all want to feel passionate? Don't we all want to feel purpose? So it's like you're literally just deserving yourself and everyone around you by not going out and doing what makes you feel the best. Yeah.
Totally. I get that. Do you feel that way about what you do in the world of law?
So this is something I've struggled with in the past. I love being a lawyer and I really love running my business, but I actually think that I enjoy this podcast more than I enjoy being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so this is something that I can see and that I feel that I love. I wake up wanting to do this. I get super excited when I get to talk to somebody interesting. So this is something that I would love to be the best at, whatever, my topics are, whatever I fall into. But like, I look up to people like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, these guys, because I just think there's nothing better on the planet than talking to the most interesting people in the world. Like, what could be better than that? But that's what lights me up.
Sponsored by Dos Equis.
Yeah. I got that. That was good. But yeah, so I mean, I agree with you on all accounts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you being honest about that. Sometimes individuals have something they do in their life that benefits them financially and something else that benefits them spiritually.
Yeah.
Right? And it's important for us to know that. And I believe that we have 5 core categories in life.
Okay.
And all 5 of these are connected, intertwined. And if one of these 5 is off sync, it affects the other 4. So we need to examine what we're doing with our lives and be honest with ourselves mentally, relationally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And all 5 of these categories are equally important. In fact, right now I'm writing a 6-book series where we're going to cover all 5 of these categories. And it's going to take me probably about 3 to 5 years to publish all of these books, starting with The Moral Compass, which is the first book that we're publishing through Los Angeles Tribune Publishing House. We have a division that publishes leadership books. And it's about integrity-driven leadership.
Yeah.
Because I believe first and foremost, a human being needs to have integrity. It's like the foundation of a home.
Yeah.
So before you talk about putting granite in the kitchen, before you talk about putting a chandelier on, we human beings, we love to go straight to the chandelier.
Yeah.
Right? Straight
course.
to the garages, straight to the Ferraris.
Yeah.
It starts with a little concrete slab on the ground, foundation.
Yeah.
If you don't have a foundation, you can't have a home.
Yeah.
For a human being, the foundation is integrity.
Yeah.
And I define integrity in the way that the great Buckminster Fuller, one of the greatest minds of the last 100 years, he actually invented so many different things. He has over 100 inventions, perhaps one of the most underrated minds of our time.
Yeah.
And he's defined integrity in a way that very few people can truly appreciate. So I hope the folks watching here go delve deep into that, because there are books upon books upon books written of it. But the core of it is that for us as a human being to be at our peak potential, we need to practice and live and exist in integrity.
Yeah.
And so before anyone reads the other 5 books that myself and a group of thought leaders are writing to cover those 5 categories, it starts with integrity.
Yeah,
You know?
but before we go past that, what exactly is your definition of being in integrity? Because I have my definition, and this was even a huge topic of conversation in the podcast that I just did before you came in here. We were trying to define what integrity was to us and what that meant, and I would like to hear your definition before I give you mine.
So this is something that the great statesmen, the great philosophers, the great teachers historically have pondered upon and written so many books, whether it's from Sufism, whether it's from Buddha.
Yeah.
But I will say that integrity is you being your authentic self and living that connection that you have to God and being aligned with the purpose that you have.
Yeah.
Right? So you're in integrity, right? You can't take shortcuts in life.
Yeah.
I think that there are universal laws that exist.
Yeah.
You can't, I believe in karma. I believe that there are 7 core universal principles of Hermeticism that stem from Hermetics.
Yeah.
And one of which is as above, so below. Another way of saying that is as within, so without. And so a lot of times people try to cut corners and do things in life and they think they're getting ahead, but really they're getting pushed behind.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen people in life that have risen and fallen just as quick? Because they believe that you can take shortcuts in life and be dishonest and do things that are outside of integrity.
Yeah.
The true successful business leader, entrepreneur, innovator, attorney is someone that practices with integrity,
Yeah.
despite what the climate might be.
Yeah.
I know here in Southern California, there's a lot of, especially in the world of law, I have so many friends that are lawyers, and, there's a lot of shortcuts that sometimes folks do.
Yeah.
But I see that they're not fundamentally happy.
No.
I don't see them have the same zest of life that you do here.
Yeah.
And so you're only punishing yourself
Yeah.
when you live a life outside of integrity. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And that was something that we came to the conclusion too when we were discussing, was that being in integrity means being in alignment in every aspect of your life. And for me, that starts with the way that you wake up in the morning, the way you breathe, the way you interact with others, how do you talk, how do you do business with them, right? And if you're in alignment from the top all the way to the bottom, that also correlates to your connection with God, right? And your relationship with God. So I agree with you in the definition there. And I guess what was the name of the gentleman that you were describing a minute ago?
Buckminster Fuller, Bucky Fuller.
Got it. Does he have a similar definition for what integrity is too? Because you said that he had described it through your study of him.
So there are seminars, courses, books, workshops, all devoted to Buckminster Fuller's definition of integrity.
Okay.
So many different companies have been inspired by his definition of integrity.
Yeah.
And so it's not a simple definition from a dictionarial standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about a way of being, a way of living, a way of existing. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Right? What does that mean to be a human being?
Yeah.
We're not a human doing.
No.
Right?
We're humans being.
If it was about the things that we do, it's about who do we show up as in a room?
Yeah.
When we walk in a room, who do we wake up as?
Yeah.
Like what you're saying, when you wake up, what's the first thing you do?
Yeah.
And so for us to be aware of the fact that we're a human being,
Yeah.
sadly, most people are on this planet not realizing that they're human beings.
Yeah.
Funny enough, last night I was trying to watch something to relax to, and what better movie to relax to than a nice zombie movie? So I watched George Romero's Land of the Dead.
Okay.
Which is a very good movie. And I was watching it, I'm like, wow, these are metaphors for life. A lot of these zombie films, they're not just, horror films. There's a message that these directors are trying to share with us. And I'm like, how many people are living on this planet that are sleepwalking. Have you ever met someone, Joe, that you know is sleepwalking? I'm like, knock, knock.
100%.
You need to wake up and realize that you have this incredible gift of life.
Yeah.
And yet you don't recognize you have this gift of life.
Yeah.
And so let's stop sleepwalking, folks. Knock, knock. We're here to wake you up.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, I get anxiety thinking about those people because a couple of them come to mind in my life. And it's individuals that I see that don't have passion, they don't have a fire. They're just content with being and not even being a human being, but just like sitting on their laurels, and they're not even trying to accomplish anything. And it's not saying that you have to like have this unending drive like many people do. Like I know you and I have this drive where we want to do great things. We want to be the best, but just sitting and just doing nothing and just wanting to go day by day. You go to your 9 to 5, you get home, you get drunk, and you go to bed.
Yeah.
Right. So those people definitely drive me crazy. And I feel that deeply in my bones. And for them, I almost feel sorrow, and I want to love them, and I want to be like, how can I inspire them to want to go out there and live their dharma and to find what they're passionate about and to really seek what they're trying to do on this planet.
I think the greatest self-help book of all time is the Bible. And what you discover when you truly read it with an open mind is that it tells you, and it tells the reader, that both hell and heaven can be found within.
Yeah.
There are individuals that are living in hell on this planet Earth. You don't need to go to some spooky, faraway land down there.
Yeah.
They're living in hell.
Yeah.
And consequently, Joe, there are people that are living in heaven.
Yeah.
Right here on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So there's both.
Yeah.
Right? And we can choose with the decisions and choices that we make whether or not we want to live a life that's heaven or whether or not we want to live a life that's hell.
Yeah.
And so metaphorically speaking, I think that's a powerful tool, powerful way to look at it. And it's not about a pie in the sky when we die.
Yeah.
It's about something sound on the ground while we're still around. Right?
One more time, can you repeat
It's
those?
not a pie in the sky when you die. It's sound on the ground while you're still around.
That is amazing.
And that's what we got to focus on.
No,
right?
I agree with you entirely because I believe that there is no heaven or hell. We've been given everything at our power and our disposal to live in heaven now, or this can be our hell at this exact moment. So I resonate with that on a very core level.
The kingdom of God is found within.
Yeah.
That means that heaven is found within.
Yeah.
Right? The choices that we make, the kind of person you choose to be, what kind of a service, are you a service-orientated leader?
Yeah.
Do you have integrity-driven leadership, which is a subtitle of my book, The Moral Compass, coming out next week.
Yeah.
Available at Barnes & Noble, available on Amazon. And so, I'm just excited because I know I'm living my purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not...
I can feel the excitement from you. A lot of people that I speak to, they don't have this kind of excitement. Like, it's really nice to, when I do have conversations with people that are in alignment with who they are, what their purpose is, and why they're here, these conversations, they light me up. It's like, there's different types of people in your life. There's the people that suck the battery out of you and they drain you, or there's people that you come and you give an electric charge to, and you leave that conversation feeling more alive and better than you were before it happened.
Yeah.
So I can feel that deeply with you.
It's just my Tesla, man. It brought some static electricity with
Hey,
me.
me too.
Thanks for the
So
compliment.
yeah, we both got that.
So with that being said, do you like your Tesla?
I love my Tesla.
What is it, a 3S?
I have the Y. I just got the
have
Y.
a Y?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have the 3, with all due respect.
Why is that?
I just think that if you have a Tesla, you should have a Y or an S.
I agree. Yeah, yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. I really like
What
the
are your
Teslas.
thoughts on the fact that these supercharging stations will now have a whole host of other cars that will be using them for charging? I don't know if you
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah,
That
so-
sounds like a
so-
pain in my ass.
Yeah, well, so I already have to wait to charge my car at a lot of these charging stations.
Yeah. You don't have a supercharger at home?
I like the charging stations. It's quick. I'm out and about,
Gotcha.
and I use them frequently.
Yeah.
But now Tesla's opening them up for, I think, Ford, if I'm not mistaken, like some other car model and Mercedes,
Yeah.
I think. And so there's going to be like a bunch of different cars.
Yeah.
And I already have to wait.
Yeah.
So you don't like that, do you?
I mean, I understand exactly why they're doing it, right? Because everything's a business and everything's about shareholders. So I get it. Obviously, for the consumer and the person who uses a Tesla, this is not going to be pleasant. But I also have a supercharger at home. So for me, it's not that big of an issue. It's only an issue when I go on longer trips. But I don't like the fact that I'm going to have to wait even longer when I need to get that
Have
charge.
you felt like the exclusivity of a Tesla has gone down in recent years?
I have, but then I visit other places. And when I visit other places, I don't.
Yes. Yes.
You know, we live in Southern California where you drive around, you see people driving a Ferrari, you see people driving a Lambo, but then you go visit other countries where those vehicles, it would be a miracle to find them, right? So it's like, I think just when you're in a place where that kind of wealth is around, we're obviously going to notice it more. And everyone here is a little bit more, you know, blue. They want to do better and they want to make sure that they're energy efficient and stuff. So with that being said, yeah, I do notice them here a lot.
Can we call this segment of your podcast First World Problems?
Yeah, for sure. We can.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to First World Problems.
Yeah, where are we going to charge our vehicle? Yeah, very, very real. Yeah. So when you were talking about this book, you said that this one's called The Moral Compass, but you said that your books are going to cover the 5 topics which you discussed. So is this book, like what you were discussing, is this a foundational book that you need to read before the other 5? And then each book will be about one of those topics?
Totally. So we have
nailed it. Okay.
Moral Compass. We're going to have the Money Compass, the Health Compass, the Peace of Mind Compass, the Relationship Compass, the Spiritual Compass.
Yeah.
The Moral Compass, I'm excited because one of our co-authors who wrote the foreword is Dr. Joe Vitale.
Yeah.
He's a multiple-time New York Times best-selling author. He's brought this Hawaiian principle of Ho'oponopono to the United States, and it helped popularize it. A lot of people remember him as the star of that film, The Secret, which was a phenomena like 15, 20 years ago. And so I'm excited because he's a part of it as well. And he's a friend of mine and an integrity-driven leader. So thank you, Joe Vitale. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you know, when I'm like hearing you talk about all these amazing individuals that you've had the opportunity to meet, when you were like climbing the ranks to become the CEO, were you a journalist at one point? Were you out there in the field writing the reports or writing these editorials, or like what was your job before you became the CEO?
No, I was not a journalist. I had a very unconventional path. I'm a businessman. I'm not a journalist. I'm a businessman who believes that businesses are the answer to the problems in life. And that's why I love this country, right? I think that the experiment, the United States experiment, was the greatest experiment of all time. And, you know, the set of laws that have put into place in this country, and as an officer of the law, you can appreciate that, have created this system that works.
Yeah.
It's always going to be imperfect. Everything is. There's always going to have problems. Every society will have problems. But we live in a unique situation here where if you have the drive and if you have the vision, you could follow that drive and follow that vision.
Yeah.
Right? Someone in North Korea who's just as passionate about the power of media that I am cannot do that.
No.
Someone in Iran that's just as passionate about being an attorney may not be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people here complaining about student loans, complaining about credit cards, and complaining about mortgages.
Yeah.
They don't realize that those are privileges.
Yeah.
How many people in other parts of the world want a credit card?
Yeah.
How many people in other parts of the world would love the opportunity to have a student loan?
No.
You mean to tell me that someone can actually pay for my education, I can pay them back?
Yeah.
And yet people in this country are complaining about the very things that they should be appreciative of. That's why I recommend folks get a passport, get multiple stamps in that passport. After you have at least 5 stamps, then share your opinions.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're absolutely correct. And this was something that when you're saying this, I felt it deeply when I was in India. So I went to India and I spent a month there and I bounced around the country and I stayed in really nice areas. And then I stayed in some of the most impoverished places I've ever seen in my entire life. And when you go to countries where they don't have the opportunities that we have and they don't get to see the things that we do and they just can't get access to the things that we have access to, it really puts things into perspective. And I remember just at one point, I'm riding in one of the tuk-tuks down through New Delhi and the buildings are like all ready to topple over, but not toppling over. The electrical wires, it literally looks like I'm going to get shocked and I could die at any moment. But it's like perfect chaos, but also that's how their universe works. And I just had this deep appreciation where we do live in America, where there's certain structures, there's rules, there's going to be consistency, and something that you really don't get a chance to love and be thankful for until you see how the rest of the world is living.
It is so important for people to travel.
Yeah.
It is so important for people to have a wide perspective.
Yeah.
It amazes me how people can be so sure and so convinced of their opinions on a matter with such a limited perspective.
Yeah.
Right? We have to be honest with ourselves. There's no shame in being wrong about something.
Yeah.
When I'm wrong about something, I admit it because I know I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a work in progress my whole life.
Yeah.
But we have folks that are so attached to a set of beliefs, whether it's just philosophically or whether it's any politically or anything. I think that what makes this country great and what has made it great is that we're constantly evolving as a nation. Right? If you look, every single generation is very different in this country. It's almost amazing. Other parts of the world, you see it's kind of like the same thing over and over in many ways. But this is an incredible country that people don't realize how magical it is. And when those folks were in that room developing the laws of this country, that's what Napoleon Hill would call a mastermind. Right. I'm a big fan of the book Think and Grow Rich.
Same.
And my company has worked with the Napoleon Hill Foundation in the past, and we've got some things going on with the Think and Grow Rich Institute coming up soon. Because I'm personally a fan. To answer your question, going back about did you cover these people? I didn't cover them as a journalist, but I was always a fan of them. I went from reading Chicken Soup for the Soul to working with Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. They've been on my TV network before. I went from watching The Secret to writing books with the people in that movie. So the personal journey for me, that's where it came from. It was an informal way of covering them. And going back to what I was saying about when the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution was written, that's a mastermind. A mastermind is 2 equals 3. You got 2 people in sync, it becomes 3. Now, what happens when you got a room of several dozen people on the same page? And here's the greatest thing about what they did. They made sure that our rights did not come from each other, did not come from the state. Our rights come from God. It's written in the laws of this country. And I believe that adds something that I can't describe, something magical, something that, don't ask me to give a description of it, but it adds something in the air of this country that makes sure that regardless of how divided we can get, regardless of the problems that we face, regardless of how dark things can be, we end up on the right track. And we end up where we're supposed to. And growth is challenging. Growth can be hard, but I really believe in this country. And I'm very proud to be an American, the first person in my family born in this country. And to now be the CEO of a national news brand, that's only possible in this country. My story is uniquely American. You cannot hear this story in any other country in the world. And so God bless this country, and I'm just excited and pumped up.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's really inspirational too. So you were talking about the fact that you hadn't interviewed and basically had an opportunity to be a journalist with those individuals. But it sounds like with your job, you've had an opportunity to meet some of the most interesting people on the planet.
Yes.
And when I hear that, I'm like jealous in like a sense where I'm like, you get to meet the dopest people. And so how long have you been CEO, first of all?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. And through that journey, have you just, whenever you for example, want to meet someone or talk to someone, is it just that you have the connections now through the company, or is it that you've reached out to them through your own connections? How did you end up meeting these individuals, or do you just get what you want because you're with such a high publication now?
Well, there's a lot of different social currencies that we have in society. Right? Accessibility to influential people. You might be very well off financially, and you might be supporting and sponsoring philanthropy or charity or humanitarian endeavors, which I recommend every entrepreneur watching do. One, it's a great way of giving back. Two, the folks that are really moving and shaking in society, you can find them in charity events, in philanthropy events. But we are a little bit lucky because, again, going back to how we opened this conversation up, if you look at how many legacy brands are in the United States, there's only a few dozen truly are defined by a legacy brand. And if you look at the top cities in the United States, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, the number's even shorter. And so we are unique in the standpoint that we have one of the greatest brands in the world when it comes to a news publication.
Got it.
And so that gives us the power to attract. And, it gives us the ability to have doors open for us.
Got it.
That, sometimes might have a lock, but, our hands seem to open those doors. So I have the opportunity to meet a lot of incredible people. That's part of my job that I love the most, actually.
Got it.
And so, we've done a great job of meeting specifically. My personal passion has always been personal development. And so very specifically, I've had the opportunity to have conversations with, work with, do business with, or have them featured with folks like Bob Proctor, who's one of his final public appearances was on our TV network at one of our events, just weeks before he passed. And so I remember talking to Bob thinking, wow, it was just a few years ago. I was reading his books, watching his, films. And now here we are having a conversation. And so I've had a lot of full circle moments, Joe.
That's amazing.
My life is like a series of full circle moments, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's rad. I look forward to a lot of full circle moments for myself in the future because when you say it, I feel that they're coming for me in many different ways. But they'll happen exactly when they need to at exactly the right time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess when I'm listening to you also, and so you run the Los Angeles Tribune, what's the difference between like you and the Los Angeles Times?
Yeah.
Like why would somebody that, let's say somebody's listening to this podcast, why would they go to the Los Angeles Tribune instead of the Los Angeles Times for news? Is the Los Angeles Times owned publicly? Like, what's the differences there?
Yeah, look, a lot of news companies have great people working and great people working at these institutions, people that are passionate about journalism. We are not an organization that is as focused on local news the way that other organizations are.
Yeah.
And nor are we an organization that makes political statements or covers politics to the extent that other organizations do. I think that every organization has its own role in society. Our role is very simple. We're the news company that covers inspirational, positive news for the leaders of America.
Yeah.
And so it's a very unique niche. And quite frankly, I would say that it's a niche we sort of carved out ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, and if you look historically in the late 1800s, there was one news company here in Los Angeles. The two individuals that ran that news company ended up having a disagreement, or I wasn't in the room, it was the late 1800s. And something happened where it split into two companies. And one became the Los Angeles Times, one became the Los Angeles Tribune.
Yeah.
And so the name has existed in the ethos of this state since the late 1800s.
Oh, wait, I didn't even realize that. So you're saying this was the same company at one point?
In the late 1800s, there was one news company that split into two.
Got it.
And so the Tribune has exchanged hands as far as different ownerships of the intellectual property rights of the trademark. We're the fourth or fifth, I don't know exactly, group to have owned this particular trademark.
Got it.
But consequently, yes, in the late 1800s, there was one. Name of it is slipping my mind. I believe it may have been the Los Angeles Daily Times, but I'll have to get back to you to be certain. But then in 1886, the Tribune was born for the first time. People heard that name. So it's been around a long time. But to answer your question, the difference is we're unconventional, untraditional, and we are, our tagline has changed the status quo.
Yeah.
And so I don't even focus on any other news company, to tell you the truth. I'm just so laser focused on what we're doing.
Yeah, and I guess in regards to when you say like laser focus on other companies, what comes to mind for me is like, so you base your success off like the amount of views, the amount of like people that buy it, or like is your subscription based?
No.
Like,
For us, it has nothing to do with the number.
Okay.
For us, it has everything to do with who, right? I believe that if you want to change the trajectory of our country, it's much more powerful to be able to resonate with 100,000 leaders, game changers, people that are integrity-driven, focused entrepreneurs, business owners, teachers, than it is 1 million individuals that, going back to our earlier conversation, that are just going about the motions.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in reaching 1 million people going about the motions.
Yeah.
I'm interested in reaching the 100,000 people
that are going to make
that
a
are
difference.
impacting this country and impacting our society. And so it has nothing to do with numbers. See, this is something that this whole industry is so focused on. Numbers. I want to know, who are you reaching?
But then how do you make a living? Like, you know what I mean? How do you support it? Do you just, because you're focused on those people that are making a difference, they're sharing it with their people?
Great question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to share you the story of the show Seinfeld. Have you ever watched it?
Yes.
So when Seinfeld came out initially in '89, it was not a hit. Many people know that it's the single most successful show of all time, financially speaking. It's like every 5 years they do another $1 billion deal. They just did some huge deal with Netflix. Now, why is that relevant to the conversation we're having? It's very relevant because the first 2 or 3 years that Seinfeld came out, the numbers as far as the ranking, as far as the viewership total, were very low. It wasn't until the second half that it became a hit as far as popular culture goes.
Yeah.
But it still stayed on the air. It didn't get canceled. Why? Because even though the numbers were low, the demographics contained high net worth individuals that watched them. And so if you have a media company that has high net worth individuals that are watching, that are reading, you're always going to have people that want to sponsor because we are reaching some of the wealthiest people in this country.
Got it.
Does that give you a good idea?
That answered my question. That's so interesting. And I guess when you're able to track those statistics, how are you able to tell that high demographic individuals are watching? Like, how do you get that information?
There's a lot of agencies. There's a lot of polling. There's a lot of in-house polling. There's a lot of common sense ways, like gauging the people that are in the room when we do various events. And quite frankly, we have a team that's very connected to our community.
Yeah.
It's about building a community.
Yeah.
I know the people.
Yeah.
I may not know every single one, but I know a good percentage of the folks that attend our events, the folks that show up to support our community.
Yeah.
And one thing they all have in common is, for the most part, they're all very successful individuals.
Yeah.
So it's like when Gallup does a poll, they may not do a poll of an entire country, but they will do a poll to enough individuals so they can gauge the general atmosphere of that community.
Got it. How interesting. And then with being CEO, have you felt that you've had a great impact on the direction that the news has gone? And do you have a direct choice on what you guys cover?
That's a great question, Joe. And here's the truth. I see so many entrepreneurs. I see so many business owners. I see folks making the same mistake over and over and over again. Too many people, Joe, think that their business is an extension of their personal emotional needs.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your personal emotional needs.
Yeah.
Right? Your business's role and objective is to solve as many problems as possible in society. Right? To fill as many needs that society has, to help the world become a better place. If you have personal emotional issues, speak to a professional.
Yeah.
Right? I have, I can't tell you how many times someone says, Mo, please check out my company website. I go to the company website. It's a big picture of them going like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this your MySpace page from back in the day?
Yeah.
Or is this your personal, professional website?
Yeah.
And so let's stop making our businesses about ourselves, our personal emotional needs, about attention. We live in an attention-driven society where people have valued this currency of attention, and it is so destructive.
Yeah.
On a micro level, on a macro level, we value attention way too much as a society. I mean, it's a very unhealthy thing to be addicted to because, first of all, there's no such thing as a cap to it. And there's always someone else that's going to have more celebrity than you do, no matter how big you get.
Of course.
Right? And so it's this bottomless pit that a lot of people find themselves in the social media age.
Yeah.
And so your business success is not defined by the attention you get. Your business success, in my opinion, is defined by how many people are you helping? How many seeds are you planting? So when I say that we're a news company that's all about empowerment in media, I know that when we do a program that reaches 100,000 people, we've planted 100,000 seeds that are now going to blossom, 100,000 seeds of leadership that are going to come into fruition and help leaders maintain their integrity-driven leadership and really just make the world a better place.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that you're saying hits deeply with me, where it's just understanding that it's not about having such a huge or broad audience, but it's really about being laser specific and being focused on having an impact. And it's something that I've been struggling with personally, which is like what I talked about with the last podcast I have, is like wanting to have like a bigger impact. But the truth of the matter is I've gotten so many phone calls and so many people reaching out and telling me that what I've shared has changed their life, or it's inspired them, or it's motivated them to do great things. And it's more having, I think, a deeper impact on a micro level than shooting to have a macro impact on a level with people that it's not going to do anything, right? If you're sharing with the people that are not seeking to grow and not seeking to motivate themselves and don't have a lot going on, it's not really doing anything. But if you're really inspiring the people that are trying to make a difference in the world, that's going to have so much more of an impact and going to help people so much more.
Joe, this podcast we're doing is for one person.
Yeah.
There's one person out there that's going to be touched, moved, and inspired by this conversation.
Yeah.
And when you enter content creation, writing, podcasting, being a thought leader with that philosophy, it frees you from that chain of slavery, mental slavery, that will confine your potential. It has nothing to do with numbers. Again, I get actually it's a pet peeve of mine when people bring up numbers and reach, because they have such a old school, old fashioned, uninspired way of thinking about this whole business.
Yeah.
It's about that one person that's watching this right now that heard something that sparks for them. And we might not even, it might have actually been the Tesla conversation that something resonated for them. We don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the thing that we think is the least inspiring that's the most inspiring.
Yeah, but it could even just be an inspiration to you and I.
Or just you and I, right?
Yeah.
That's our responsibility.
Yeah.
And, in the ancient philosophy of Sufism, they say that when you save one soul, it's as though you've saved all of humanity. And so we're actually disrespecting, if we have a small audience, if a podcast is put out there in the interwebs and 10 people watch it, we're disrespecting those 10 people.
Yeah.
If we say, man, I wish we had Joe Rogan numbers right now.
Yeah.
Go look at Joe Rogan's first podcasts. He had no clue that he was going to be the most influential person in media. And I remember him back in the day. I was a kid. I used to watch news radio, and I loved his show, sitcom, and I've been a fan of his for a long time. And he became the most influential voice in all of media because he followed his purpose.
Yeah.
Not because he said, you know what, I want to be bigger than Howard Stern one day.
No.
Otherwise, he would have just completely taken this path of commercialization, and he would have been caught up in the matrix.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be that influential, you have to follow your purpose. Your purpose will find the way.
Yeah. I really needed to hear this today. But it's always strange. Like, we're talking about God and the universe, and just everything happens at exactly the timing, when you need it, how you need it, and where you need it, right? And so today was a very good conversation for me to first have the one that I had, about a couple hours ago, and then speaking to you, because you're absolutely right. And when you say that, I feel it like deep in my soul. As long as one person feels this or hears this conversation and it inspires them, like that's really what the goal should be. And it's something that we should all be striving for. And so I really appreciate you sharing this and just being the fullest authentic version of yourself.
One person at a time.
One person at a time.
With the hundreds of people that are involved with our newspaper.
Yeah.
If one person is impacted positively by that newspaper, I did my job.
Yeah. Gotcha. Who was somebody when you were on your journey? Who was like the one person that it really inspired you to potentially even become CEO or to want to go down this road? Who was that person?
I have so many.
Yeah.
I have a long list of mentors in my personal life, learning humility, the power of humility from my family, from my parents, from my siblings, and recognizing that humility is strength and not weakness.
Yeah.
Professionally, being blessed to have so many great mentors that, taught me that everyone is approachable.
Yeah.
And that my presence in a room is just as valuable as anyone else's presence, regardless of their title, status, and stature.
Yeah.
And so I am blessed that I have had so many great mentors. However, also a lot of my mentors don't realize that they were my mentors.
Yeah.
And so it's not this formal thing where it's like, hey, Joe, can you please be my mentor?
Yeah, of course.
That's a little awkward conversation sometimes for people to have. But I allow myself to learn from any interaction that I'm in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we live our lives thinking that there's something that everyone can teach us, there's so much magic that exists in our lives when you have that philosophy.
Yeah.
I could learn from that little girl sitting right there on that couch.
Yeah.
She could teach me something profound.
Yeah.
But most people walk in this room and just see a little girl and ignore her.
Yeah.
And just put it in their subconscious mind and gray matter.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone can teach us something. Every moment can teach us something.
Yeah.
This universe is my mentor.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I've always said that to people. I think everyone can offer you a different perspective, even if it's on a topic that you feel that you might be an expert on. But that person might have experienced different things, that they might have seen it from a different way and be able to share that with you. And like you said, that child could be one of your greatest teachers if you're willing to be open and listen to what the universe is trying to show you. Because she didn't show up to this exact moment for no specific reason. She showed up for maybe even being the purpose of us being able to point to her during the podcast.
By the way, she's an actress. She's
we hired her.
We planted that whole segment out.
Through your journey, who would you say have been the top 3 people that you've enjoyed meeting through being the CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune?
I've had So many. Wow, that's such a powerful question. And I've had the pleasure of conversing with some incredible leaders, well-known leaders, folks that have reached the world. Sharon Lecter, who co-authored the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is a dear friend and an incredible leader, and she's consistently been sharing her financial wisdom with our community. Dr. Joe Vitale, who we have the Moral Compass coming out with, has been a dear friend and a good supporter. And then there's folks that maybe don't have the New York Times bestseller status, but are remarkable leaders. You know, our general counsel and partner, Saji, a mutual friend of ours, has done a great job of making sure we're steered on course. And, you know, a lot of times when people think of business attorneys, Joe, unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs think, well, you call a business attorney when you're in trouble. Yeah. And that's the wrong approach. No. A good general counsel will guide you in the right direction and help be a co-captain or a captain, and help make sure that your ship is floating in the right direction at sea. And so, we've had great partnerships and great friends. David Fagan of Top Talent Agency has been real supportive of our endeavors. Yeah, and I could go on and on.
Of course, your list probably goes
we don't
forever.
have time for me to list all of the people, but here's the point. Yeah, building good relationships. Bill Walsh of Power Team International, another great supporter of ours. Building good relationships. Yeah, relationships are key. Yeah, right. One of the most important books for an entrepreneur to read is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. If you don't know how to win friends, if you don't know how to influence people, I'm sorry to say entrepreneurship is not for you. Being a leader is not for you. Yeah. Everything in life comes down to relationships. Yeah. I'm a very ordinary person that has extraordinary friends. And having those extraordinary friends have afforded me the opportunity to now sit as the CEO of a national brand. Has nothing to do with me being extraordinary, other than the fact that I have extraordinary friends. And so your net worth is not just your network is not just your net worth. Yeah. Your network is your goddamn destiny. Yeah. It's so fucking important. So have a strong group of people in your life. Yeah. And sometimes we have to use strong language to go through those heads so people wake up and realize, wow, who am I spending my life with? Yeah. I get pumped up and passionate about it because I know there's people that have so much inside of themselves to provide to society. Yeah. But because of who they're hanging around, they're going to end up contributing to what they don't want to contribute to. And you know what that is, Joe? You know what the richest place on planet Earth is? No. The graveyard. Because of all the hopes, dreams, businesses, and ideas that have gone away, that are buried 6 feet under. And so do not die with your music still in you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Share that voice. Take what's inside and bring it out. Yeah. And you are an extraordinary person. You've actually been very eloquent. I really like the use of soliloquies and like the analogies that you use. They really hit hard and they hit at the right time. So you've done a good job of weaving that story. And you're absolutely right. And I believe that too, that your network is a great representation of not just who you are, but of what you can achieve through life, right? Mm-hmm. Because like we were describing earlier, if you don't know how to do something, well, if you know somebody who knows how to do that, you can accomplish great things. And I've learned very quickly in my life what I'm strong at, what I'm good at, because I make it a point to seek out the people that have strengths in the other places. Yes. So it's very, very... it's very inspirational to hear how you've done so. And I guess, did you ever see yourself being the CEO of a newspaper? Like, what were you doing before this that led to this journey? I'm going to answer your question. Yeah. Parking here charges per 20 minutes. Yeah. Just so you know. So we need to wrap this up. We need to wrap this up. We've already been going way too long. 20 minutes. It's not hourly. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's a sign of our times. Yeah, it is. Never seen that before. Yeah. Shout out to Newport Beach. Yeah. They got to make their money, honey. Every 20 minutes, I'm like, okay. Welcome to 2023. They're getting you everywhere, man. Yeah. So I did not see myself specifically in this role. I did know, though, that I would be somebody that would follow my purpose. Yeah. And being unattached to what that looks like is the key. Yeah. Because the second that we try to carve out a way that looks like is the second that we're not being heart-centered, but we're being mind-centered. Right? And then earlier we were talking about how your business is not for your personal emotional needs. Yeah. The irony is the second I stopped giving a damn what people thought about me was the second people started inviting me to speak on stages. Yeah. Right? And the second I stopped giving a damn what it looked like to fail was the second I started having worldly success beyond my imagination.
Yeah.
And so we cannot fall into those traps.
Yeah.
We have to continue to just do what it is that we're here to do, thinking about those things as far as what it looks like, what the titles look like. It is not a good place to be, in my opinion. Yeah, you have to enjoy the world. Yeah, you have to, but you can't take these things too serious.
Yeah, but how did you get to the point where you stopped caring about what people thought and you stopped caring about success? What got you to that point? Was it something that pushed you over the edge, or was it just going through the journey of life?
Not necessarily that I stopped caring about success. Stopped caring about the opinions of others.
Yeah, the opinions of others. Success,
yes. Yeah. Because I realized one profound thing, Joe. What is more important to me? Either what is more important to me in my life, which we only have this amount of time on this planet, either what's more important to me is the opinions of other people and what goes on in other people's heads about me and about what I do, or my fulfillment and living my calling. So what's more important? Other people's opinions of me, or me living my calling and having my peace of mind? And once I realized that that's the choice to make, it was a very easy choice.
You simplified it. And you decided what's going to make you happy. Yeah, and what feels in alignment and what feels in being integrity. Yeah, all the stuff we've been discussing.
It's not about having a career, it's about having a calling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Finding purpose and passion. I know a lot of people, they interchange those words, but yeah, it's all of the things that we've described so far. And so I can see too why you're so passionate about growth, seeing basically how you can inspire others to learn and grow about themselves. And I wanted to say, thank you for letting me be on. I was on a show called Leadership Live, which you guys had on the program.
Absolutely.
And just being on that program for the hour that we were on it, I was able to learn from other people who are thought leaders within the community themselves. And I know our friend Saji, who's here today just hanging out, he was on that program also. And it was very inspiring to hear, even though we were talking about the same
He's charging by the hour, by the way.
I figured as much. He's not cheap either. I know that. So what you're saying is the Tribune has deep pockets.
That's right.
But when I was on that program, it's, you ask a question, right, to 8 different people. It's the same question, but all of them had a completely different answer.
Isn't that amazing?
And this is what we're going back to before. It's like everybody has something to teach you if you're willing to see and listen and be open to it. And so it was really nice for me to be on this program to realize like where I'm at in life. Like I thought I've learned a lot and that I felt like I know a lot of things, but to hear how all these other individuals just had completely different perspectives about the same exact thing was really good for me to hear it. So I want to say thank you for having me on there and also just letting me be inspired by these individuals and for you also holding a platform where people can come and express themselves in that way.
Well, thank you for being one of our guests and taking time out of your busy schedule. And you're very observant and you have a very keen eye, which makes you a very good officer of the law. Yeah. Now, I've been experiencing that so much where I'm like, you ask one question and people have a totally different answer, which, Robert Antoine Wilson, who's a great author, he had this philosophy that every single individual on planet Earth has their own reality tunnel.
Yeah.
Everyone sees the world from their own version of reality.
Yeah.
And we are essentially billions of people simultaneously existing in different realities while we have this one shared reality.
Yeah.
And so this is why a lot of times people have a tough time of seeing eye to eye on matters.
Yeah.
There's people that I mean, it was amazing to me. And I don't, I'm not a political person. I believe in love. That's my religion. That's my political affiliation, love. Yeah. But it was amazing to me that you could ask people on completely different political spectrums.
Yeah.
What is your biggest fear of the other party? And both of them would have the same answer.
What's that answer?
Well, whatever I'm saying as could come in many different variations.
Yeah.
But then you look at the core, people want the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Oftentimes. But it's our inability to have empathy to another perspective.
Yeah.
That allows us to have division and distractions in life. And so we need to, as a society, be passionate about putting our feet in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
The second we enter relationships, conversations, interactions with putting our feet in the other person's shoes, I think that a lot of the problems we have as a society will fizzle away. And the divorce rate will go down. And my friends that are family law attorneys don't appreciate that, but I'm sorry. It's for the greater good.
They won't be able to make a living. I mean, a couple of things come to mind when you were saying what you're saying. When you were talking about, first of all, like seeing things from your vantage point, right, and your own perspective. What's something I was listening to recently, somebody was talking about how people are always seeing things from their advantage point. So you have to also be compassionate and realize that people are going to see things in the way that is going to be most beneficial to them. And then if you're able to have that compassion and allow that person to bring forth their perspective, it allows them to fully express themselves. And we should all be allowing each other to express ourselves, right? At the end of the day, I think it comes back to what does it take for each individual to be happy and to feel loved. And each person is seeking that journey on their own. And if they can come to those conclusions, because what it's going to take for you to be happy and to feel loved is completely different from what it's going to take for me to be happy and to feel loved. And so if we can come to that full circle, I think we can all be in a much better place.
Yeah, again, I don't care about politics, but I think that everyone has lessons, good and bad and indifferent, you can learn from. And I was at the Richard Nixon library in Yorba Linda here in Orange County, and they had this, expose about his negotiations with China. And there was something there where it showed his personal notes, which I thought were incredibly fascinating. I mean, here you can peek into the mind of a world leader who, that was probably his biggest accomplishment as president, was rebuilding our ties with China during a very volatile time internationally. And he wrote there quite simply, and I was like, wow, this is something that we should use in our lives, regardless of the mistakes and whatever. What do they want? What do we want? What do we both want? Again, it's such a simple thing, but how, and as an attorney who handles negotiations and settlements, you understand this.
Yeah.
But if we were to enter life with that philosophy, what is it that they want? Let's be honest about what they want. What is it that I want? Let me be honest with myself, because there's no value in lying to ourselves. What is it that we both want? And when we focus on what we both want, we find that there's a lot more productivity that can happen in life than a clash.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about this, what comes to mind for me is like a book called Never Splitting the Difference by Chris Voss. Have you ever read that book before?
I've read excerpts of it. I've heard Chris Voss, and I know that he's done a great job as a hostage
Negotiator,
negotiator.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think it comes down to, yes, first of all, you need to realize that you have your desires and you have your wants, but it's more important to understand what the other person wants. If you can understand what the other person wants, you can always find a middle ground. And it's not only that, but also understanding that there's other factors that are involved with their wants, right? Maybe it's expediency. Maybe they want to get it done quicker. Maybe it's a monetary thing. You really have to take a step outside of the situation and look at things from all corners. And yes, like you pointed out, being a lawyer, this is the skill set that's necessary for my job. I have to be able to see things from all angles, and understanding that, like, for example, when you have somebody come to, let's say, witnesses that talk about a certain incident, every witness has a different accounting of what happened during that incident. And it's up to us to step outside of all of that and to see what is the objective truth behind the scenes. And so if you're able to step out, look at things from all angles, you really can find the best solution.
Did they teach you that in law school, or did you have to figure that out on your own?
This is something I think I've always just been naturally good at as a child. Like, that's something I was always like a big strength of mine, but definitely something that one of my teachers, I remember during law school, speaking about, which was being able to see things from all the different angles. And that's always the best attorney. He's able to step into everyone's shoes and imagine like being that person. And even I have one lawyer who I've seen speak at many conferences. His name is Joseph Lowe. He's one of the best lawyers in the country. And the guy talks about he says, if you know where like something happened, go to the scene of where it happened, sit there and pretend to be each person. Step into their shoes, think about their situation and what they're looking for and what they're trying to accomplish. And then from there, basically you can go ahead and try to figure out the best solution. Yeah.
That's incredible. I think that folks that are watching this, that are entrepreneurs, that are at that place in their life where they're trying to figure out what to do, there's so many gems in here. So I encourage folks to listen to this podcast at least 2 or 3 times, because this conversation is I know I'm going to forget some of the parts that we talked about and say, I should write that down, what we said. And so, navigating the social component of life is perhaps the most important aspect when it comes to obtaining a level of influence and power in life that you can use for good.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there are enough evil people on this planet that are obsessed with becoming powerful.
Yeah.
That the good people need to also do what they need to do to obtain a level of power in society.
Got it.
Because the good people, oftentimes, they're just going about their business.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how to take over the world.
Yeah.
That's usually what evil people do. A lot of evil people, that's, historically speaking,
Yeah.
when you think of ruthlessly power-hungry individuals, usually doesn't turn out good.
Yeah.
So we need the good people to stand up and become business owners and become leaders. And if I could get a copy of that paper, sir, so that I could show some to this awesome community here. And so positive thought leaders, and our special thought leadership edition here, there's a gift to you.
Thank you.
And so our special thought leadership edition focuses on positive leaders.
Show this to the
because
camera.
we're on a mission to make the world a better place. And we want leaders to stand up and make a positive difference in the world. And so I hope that this podcast is blessed. I know that this podcast is going to be one of the most successful podcasts because it's going to impact leaders.
100%.
And it's going to impact the people that are impacting the people.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know a lot of people in Silicon Valley and a lot of people around the world are obsessed with, right now there's like this great obsession with life extension and immortality.
Yeah.
The closest thing we have to immortality is the fact that when you do a good deed, there's a reverberation,
Yeah.
right? You want to be immortal, you want to live forever, do good deeds.
Yeah.
Those good deeds have a reverberation effect and impact.
Yeah.
And so all of these people that are obsessed with life extension, I think we live the amount of time we're supposed to live.
Yeah.
And while we're here to do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to live a fulfilled life where you're improving the quality of this world. And I'm very optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of doom and gloom. I know there's a lot of fear mongering.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic. I think we as a species are actually in a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Despite all of the horrible things that are happening in certain parts of the world, and despite the fact that a lot of people have not found their inner peace of mind,
Yeah.
I think as a whole, we're going to be fine.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people are scared, and I think specifically too, like even conversations around the AI. I think AI is going to solve most of our problems more than causing problems.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the hope is that it's not going to take over one day and destroy us, but I think it's just going to help us with everything.
Well, we have John Connor. We don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, he'll
we
show
have
up at
Edward
some-
Furlong, where are you? Come back, man.
cable, right?
Yeah. So, but it's funny. These conversations that people have
Yeah.
been having around AI. In the 15th century, there was an invention where governments wanted to ban this invention, where churches wanted to destroy this invention because they thought that this would change society in a negative way. They said that this is going to alter the minds of humanity in a negative, destructive way.
Yeah.
That invention was the Gutenberg press.
Yeah.
The Gutenberg press was freaking the fuck out of people
Yeah.
when it was invented.
Yeah.
If you go read the literature, it sounds worse than what people are saying about AI now.
Yeah.
You would have thought that there was an alien invasion
Yeah.
because of the Gutenberg press.
Yeah.
Because people are like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You can have an idea and print that by the thousands?
Yeah.
Kings and rulers were like, whoa, what if the
Yeah.
political opponents start writing literature negative about me? I mean, people were freaking out. And yet, the Gutenberg press became one of the greatest inventions of all time because it gave us books.
Yeah.
It gave us Shakespeare. It gave us newspapers.
Yeah.
It gave us all of these incredible things. It developed a whole industry of writing.
Yeah.
And because before that, stories had to be shared by word. It was the orator.
Yeah.
And then the Gutenberg press changed everything for
Yeah.
us as a species and helped us catapult ahead at Mach 10 speed.
Yeah.
AI is going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
However, like with everything else, it's going to be used for good and bad. You can use the
Yeah.
Gutenberg press to print the Bible. You could use it to print beautiful scriptures, to preserve these philosophical scriptures like the Torah. You could use it to print so many incredible things. You use it to print the Quran, the Bible,
Yeah.
historical things, or you could use it to print Mein Kampf.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends on how
It
you're going to use
depends
it.
on
Yeah.
who's controlling the power.
Yeah.
And so, like with everything else, there's good and bad that will always exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for me, what comes to mind when you're describing this is basically that just like the printing press, basically we're in an age where people can use any of the tools that are coming up nowadays for good or for evil. It just all depends on what your intentions going into it are, right? And so if you decide that it's going to be for good, then it most likely will end up that way. But if you're trying to do things for power, for greed, then it's not going to end up in a positive manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so I guess going through your journey, you've obviously, I mean, I'm just looking at this and I'm seeing here some of these individuals. Have you had the opportunity to meet all of these people?
Not all of them. Some of them are exposés about the lives of individuals. Some of them no longer are with us. We have a new thought leader edition about women in history.
Yeah.
And we have, Amelia Earhart that was featured. And we have folks that, again, sometimes our mentors are no longer with us.
Yeah.
Right? But we can still learn something from them. And
Of
so
course.
Our special editions combine, and we put this specific print edition out quarterly. This specific, it's just for thought leaders, and it's specifically for personal development and leadership.
Okay.
And so we combine living thought leaders,
Yeah.
thought leaders from history,
Yeah.
and we mesh together the preeminent newspaper for leaders in not just the United States, but internationally. And thanks to AI, we're now able to translate our paper as well as our programs on our TV network in over 50 languages. And
Yeah.
what's incredible is, this is an example of using AI for good. AI now translates languages in ways that sound as though the native-born speaker is speaking.
Yeah.
So slang is now translated in the native tongue. Conversations that maybe made sense in English but didn't make sense in Japanese if you just did a direct translation. Maybe
Yeah.
like a metaphor in English doesn't make sense if you translate it to Japanese.
Yeah.
Now AI is smart enough to recognize how to convey the messaging.
Okay.
And so that's an example of using it for good. Now, for coaches, for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
for individuals that are in the thought business, for individuals that are in the business of helping other people with their ideas, this is good, or it could be bad for your business. Because now the person in Tokyo who's a business coach
Yeah.
can reach your clients, but you could also reach the clients in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And so I think that globalism in business has never been as fast-paced as it is today.
Yeah.
And in the next 5 to 10 years, people have no clue what's going to happen in the marketplace.
Yeah. And I remember too, I wanted to make a comment too. You talked about the Gutenberg press, right? Before it was like we didn't have enough access to knowledge, but nowadays with like the amount of information that's like blasted at us all every single day, it's like it almost becomes hard many times to decipher what exactly is the information that we want to be able to look at and what we want to digest. I'm hoping that there's some good AI tools that will be able to help us kind of like figure out what's good and what's not going to be efficient for us to digest in the long run. So yeah, I mean, all of these tools that are coming out, like they can either ruin your life or they can help save your life in many different ways. So I'm excited to see where it's going to develop.
Here's a fact. A 11-year-old boy with a smartphone in his pocket
Yeah.
has more instant access to information than Bill Clinton did when he was president.
Yeah.
And so information is the most accessible thing on planet Earth right now.
Yeah.
It's wisdom that unfortunately people have lost sight of, right? Wisdom. What do you do with all this information, right? And so we need to be a wisdom-centric
Yeah.
community, right? And that's one of the things we at the Los Angeles Tribune focus on in our community is let's not just be about information. Let's have it be timeless information. A lot of other newspapers that get printed eventually end up at the bottom of a bird box, right? Los Angeles Tribune, people save it. People preserve it. People keep these newspapers on their bookshelves and revisit them because it's timeless news. And we believe news can be timeless.
Do many people still get the printed version?
Yes, because there's something magical about holding a newspaper, touching it, smelling it. I mean, there's just something there about drinking a cup of coffee, reading a copy of the Los Angeles Tribune.
Yeah.
It's not the same as digital for a lot of people. Although our digital reach, we work with a company called Issue that has over 1 million subscribers that have access to this. And so, but the physical, I want people to get the physical newspaper
Yeah.
because we use premium quality paper, environmental friendly. This is printed. Feel how thick and
no,
beautiful
I did.
this
Yeah,
newspaper
it felt
is.
almost like a book
And
in
so,
like a way. And the colors are
we want
nice.
people to read the physical newspaper because
Yeah.
I believe that there's an added level of experience.
I mean, there's also like an added level of excitement, right? This reminds me of
Yes.
my dad when I was a kid, opening up the newspaper and just like looking at it and having it in front of him. And I mean, I'm also a big proponent of books. I love reading the physical book. Don't get me wrong. There's some books that I feel like are better for Audible because I can do it while doing other things. But the real deep thought books, I love having the book in my hand
Yes,
and going
me
through
too.
it and contemplating things and just closing the book for a second, having to like reflect upon something. It's like when you're like doing it online or when you're listening to it, it's just going by so fast. You don't even get an opportunity to reflect in the same way. So I get it. It's like the nostalgia. And one day we might be looking back and be like, fuck, where are the newspapers? And hopefully it's around forever, but there
well,
might
we'll
be
be
a
the
change.
only one standing.
Cool. Yeah.
We'll be
good.
the only one standing. We'll be tall, loud, and proud.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Was anybody in your family involved with newspapers, or how did you did you get feel inspired to go down this road?
No one in my family was in the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family chose different industries,
Yeah.
whether it was mechanical engineering
Yeah.
or, my father in the Middle East had a factory. He owned a factory making automotive parts. And so, entrepreneurship, though, has always been
The
in our
mindset.
culture. And I
Yeah.
think anyone that has a
I
Middle
agree with
Eastern
that.
background,
Yeah.
whether you have an Israeli background or Persian background or Turkish background, and entrepreneurship is a lot more common. Innovation is a lot more common
Yeah.
in different parts of the world. Again, going back to how we opened the conversation, I think a lot of Americans take entrepreneurship for granted.
Yeah.
Right? I think there's too much time being spent on perfecting your resume and not enough time spent on starting your business.
Yeah.
Some people are so proud of their resume. They're
Yeah.
like, Mo, look at my beautiful resume. I'm like, how much time did you spend on that resume? I spent weeks. I got it perfected. Look at my cover letter. I'm like,
Yeah.
have you ever spent weeks starting your business or developing your business or figuring out what your purpose is?
Yeah.
No, but my resume will get me a job somewhere.
Yeah.
See, our value system, going back to our values, what do you value? I personally cannot imagine working a 9 to 5 that I'm not passionate about, that I don't enjoy doing. To me, I think that's hell on earth. If you're involved in something that you don't if you show up somewhere and you're not motivated by where you are, you're not motivated by the people you're working with, you're just motivated because every 2 weeks someone else gives you a check.
Yeah.
Time to reevaluate some things.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. When you ended up becoming CEO of the company, what is it like in the day to day? Like, what are the decisions you're having to make? What are the things that you're having to do as a CEO?
Yeah.
Because obviously, as a CEO, for many different companies, it could have different terms. But I'm interested in specifically what you're having to do with it.
So when I had the opportunity, and I'm so grateful and humbled by God for the opportunity to lead this brand, it was at a time where the pandemic was just getting started.
Yeah.
And so the timing of it was like, okay, here's this incredible opportunity that God blessed me with, and then boom, here's a pandemic on top of it. And so it's like, for me, what I learned in that time period was the most important kind of intelligence to run a business is not your IQ, right? And it's also not your EQ.
Yeah.
The most important kind of intelligence to run a business successfully, especially in today's world, is your AQ, your adaptability quotient, right? And so a lot of times people are we live in an IQ obsessed society. And I know the 90s were the decade of EQ, right? But now's the time for AQ. So how adaptable are you with your business? I know in your case, for example, you figured out a way to be very adaptable. Most people, when they think of law, specifically personal injury law, they don't think in terms of a online or using the power of technology law firm.
Yeah.
They think I'm going to go visit the attorney in person. He's going to send me to someone here. But you're a good example of AQ.
Yeah.
And what you're doing today was not be possible 5 years ago, by the way.
Not at all.
Why? Because before, one of the good things that came out of this pandemic was the fact that online communication is no longer taboo.
Yeah.
Virtual events, for example, are no longer taboo.
Yeah.
If I said that the Los Angeles Tribune is holding an event next week in 2019, people would say, where? I would say online, they would laugh.
Yeah.
Now, when I say Los Angeles Tribune is holding an event next week, they say, where can I sign up?
Yeah.
Right? They don't. The taboo of a virtual event is no longer in existence.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's opened up the doors for a lot of possibilities.
Yeah.
Our last event that we did, for example, had 30,000 attendees.
Wow.
30,000 people that attended our event, viewed, watched, participated. We had Mark Victor Hansen, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, co-creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul, is one of the folks that helped us with that.
Yeah.
Now, getting 30,000 people at one place at one time is a lot more challenging than getting 30,000 people from different countries from around the world attending virtually. And yet our impact is bigger, and the accessibility and the resources required to do that are less.
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me we can impact more people around the world with less resources?
Yeah.
So it's an incredible time. If you're an innovator and you have a mind on your head that is catered to creative ways to impact the world, this is a great time to live in.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? And in many ways, people hated the pandemic. In many ways, I loved the pandemic because it really pushed us forward technology-wise in many aspects of our lives. And like you said, like, now it's just we have gotten rid of a lot of the drawl, the stuff that people were asking you to come do in person when it's just a waste of your time at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like nowadays we're more efficient, we're getting stuff done quicker. And not only that, but the pandemic itself, like, inspired many tech people to create new software and new applications that help to improve our technology in a way that probably would have never happened if the pandemic didn't occur. You know, people are at home, they're coming up with new ideas to make us more efficient, better processes. And so I think the pandemic was a blessing, you know, in disguise. Obviously, it caused a lot of death and a lot of suffering. And I'm not saying that's not, I'm not taking that into account. I'm just saying that there were also benefits. And if you're willing to see it from both sides, you can see that there was a lot of great things that came out of that.
Yeah, and there were bursts of gratitude that came afterwards. People started to appreciate the simple things a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, I see people now appreciating going to a concert a lot more than they used to. I see people now appreciating dining in a restaurant a lot more than they used to.
Yeah.
I see people appreciating going to the beach more than they used to. Beaches were actually closed.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's been a explosion of gratitude the last year as people have returned to a semblance of normalcy. And I'm glad that despite that we've held on to the positive changes, but not necessarily the negative changes. Yeah. Right? I know there was a lot of concern. What's the new normal going to look like? Yeah. Are we entering a state of dystopian, a state of dystopia?
When you use the word dystopia, what do you mean?
For example, are we going to live the rest of our lives standing 6 feet apart from one another? Right now, we would actually be breaking that violation.
For sure.
So that's an example of some concerns that people had. They're like, are we going to ever, is this going to happen for the rest of our lives? Am I going to have my temperature checked every single time I walk in a restaurant for the rest of my life? Yeah. That would be an example of a dystopian, quote unquote, new normal. I'm glad that, you know, I get to, you know, be 1 foot away from my brother Joe so we can, you know, be properly here in this camera angle. Yeah. And so we've kept a lot of the good, which is the technological changes, the meetings virtually, but it has not created a stop in our society at this moment in time that we're doing this interview. No, but like you said, it's an appreciation for other things too, because a lot of people have asked me, why don't you do this Zoom podcast? And I'm like, I don't know. I appreciate human connection so much more because of the pandemic. I'm like, there's nothing greater than being in a room with somebody and being face to face with them. Sure, I could do this over Zoom, but it just wouldn't be the same thing. You know, this is the real deal and this is the real connection. I think people can also feel that too. It's a completely different experience than doing it online. So yeah, so I feel you there. Okay, I want to talk about your book. I think I would like to end with that. I want to hear about what the book is going to be covered, what are the topics that we're going to be really diving into there, and what people can look forward to hear, and maybe what are like some of the biggest takeaways. Thank you for that. And so The Moral Compass is coming out next month. It's published by the Los Angeles Tribune Publishing House. And just so everybody knows, this is
It's August 1st today, right?
It's available now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When this comes out, it will be available now.
It's available now, so you can go in Barnes and Nobles and you can get a copy wherever you are. You can go on Amazon and get a copy. And consequently, The Moral Compass is a book that's published by the Los Angeles Tribune Publishing House. So we have an entire division that we now have that is devoted to leadership books. So authors, individuals that want to publish a book, we now have publishing deals that we're giving them to help make the world a better place. If that's your mission, you can send your transcripts if you're an aspiring author out there, and we have an incredible team of folks that have over 20 years experience publishing books that run that division of our company. And so the Moral Compass is really about what does it mean to be a leader in today's world, and what does it mean to be an integrity-driven leader. And the composition of the book is rather unique in the sense that there are a lot of books out there that are compilation books, right? Where there's like 15, 20 authors that each contribute one chapter.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've combined having a standardized book and a compilation book. So the first half is exclusively written by me.
Okay.
And it's the Moral Compass. Then the second half of the book is, now that you've uncovered what does integrity mean to you, here are behavioral scientists, here are New York Times best-selling authors, here are business owners, here are coaches, trainers, leaders, athletes that are now commenting on what does integrity mean for them. And so we have over 20 people involved in the project. The first half is a standard book. Second half is we've invited celebrities and co-authors to participate in this. So it's a very unique and new composition, and it's a very unique and new way to do a book. So it's kind of like two books in one, but we're only charging you for one. And so you get 2 for 1. And so with that being said, I'm very excited about it. It's part of a 6-book series that the Los Angeles Tribune Publishing House is printing. I'm very excited about the Los Angeles Tribune Publishing House. Because I believe that we are going to publish and print some of the most important books in the field of leadership, nonfiction, personal development in the next few years. We've already had the opportunity to have Joe Vitale, multiple New York Times bestselling author, write the foreword for this project. And we have so many big names involved in future books. It's going to be a huge part of our business moving forward.
That's really exciting. And I can imagine that writing a book has been a beautiful process for you. And I've thought about potentially writing a book one day myself. And I guess
you would be great in that world.
Thank you. And
it's time for you to publish a book. Yesterday was actually time.
Yeah, it's funny. My dad has a saying, what's the best time to start? Yesterday. When's the second best time? Today. When's the worst? Tomorrow.
Right. There's no such thing as tomorrow, brother.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's an optical illusion.
It's never given.
Show me where's tomorrow. Has anyone found it?
We can never live in the future.
I can't find it.
Have you ever been your future self?
Exactly.
No? Yeah, I get you. And I guess I wanted to ask about the process of writing a book. Have you enjoyed it? Like, do you find I guess for me, when I think about writing a book, it's something that I've thought about. So I have these ideas and these topics that I want to discuss. And let's say that I have a general topic or a category that I want to discuss. Do you then write basically the core of it? And then do you go find data and do you go find statistics to help support it? Or what was your process like?
Yeah. So the secret to writing a book is to have the mentality that it doesn't need to be perfect.
Okay.
A lot of times folks think that their book needs to be perfect.
Okay. And
especially the first book that a person writes and publishes, they get so emotionally hung up on it.
Yeah.
And they think that it's their swan song. So they have analysis paralysis. Be emotionally unattached and just share what's in your heart.
Yeah.
And whatever ends up on that piece of paper is what's supposed to end up on that piece of paper.
Got it.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. There's no such thing as the perfect book. There's no such thing as the perfect song.
Yeah.
You can always modify things and change things. So just do it. You know, just do it. And if you got to go to the Nike store and wear, Nike shoes to get some inspiration to just do it, go do that, whatever it takes. Just do it. No analysis paralysis. That's the issue that a lot of people have. They get stuck in analyzing this, analyzing that, right?
Oh, man, that was stupid but funny.
Yeah, I know.
That was good. I like that. I like cheesy jokes. They make me happy. I'm very big on puns.
We got more dad jokes coming up. Just stay tuned.
That's amazing. That's fun. And so when working on this project, so have you like reached out when you said the second part is compilations? Have you reached out to specific individuals?
Yes, everyone was invited. Everyone was personally invited. We have, again, doctors and behavioral scientists and a whole host and myriad of incredible leaders that are now sharing their vision on integrity with their own chapters.
How exciting.
And so, again, it's like 2 in 1. And all 6 of the books will have that formula.
Awesome. I'm really excited for it to come out. When it does, I'll make sure to get a copy myself.
Sir.
Cool. So I guess I wanted to ask, is there any other topics that you wanted to discuss today before we wrap this up? Or is there anything you wanted to specifically ask
I just wanted
me?
to thank you. I think that what you're doing is incredible. And I think a lot of folks watching can learn a lot. I want to thank this awesome team you have backstage behind the scenes that do a wonderful job on the production. And, let's all work together to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Right? I think if we wake up with that mentality, regardless of what you're doing, we'll be in good shape.
Amen. Hey, thank you for sharing so much knowledge today. This is honestly such a blessing. I really appreciate you having me on here. And it's always really nice to be around somebody with such high energy and is so motivated and really doing what their dharma is on the planet. So thank you for sharing your passion. And if there's anything I ever can do to help you in your journey, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist.
Thank you, Joe.
Cool. Thank you, sir. God bless, amigo.
God bless. God
Cool.
bless.
All right. Awesome.